evening, Canterbury. Welcome to Newsmakers, where we debate the issues that made a splash in the past week. It's a pleasure to introduce this week's cast of commentators: Community Board member Jamie Gough, Newstalk ZB's morning host Ali Jones, and Christchurch City Councillor, best friend of Bob, Yani Johanson. I'm correct, am I not?
Sure, Mike. Whatever you say is true.
Thank you very much for joining us. Now, we are going to start with commuter issues. If ever you needed proof that the car is king in Christchurch, the latest batch of commuter stats reinforce that big time. Just 4% of city commuters take the bus, and if you live on the outskirts of Christchurch, apparently only 1% of those commuters bother to jump on a bus. Is this a surprise to anybody? Jamie?
That's a surprise to me now. I wasn't expecting that one. Is it a surprise that only 4% of people use the bus in Christchurch? Look, I don't actually think that's a bad statistic. 4% isn't that bad. San Diego, 4% of people use public transport. 4% of people use public transport in Phoenix. 12% of people use public transport in Los Angeles. I think we all know that the bus system here has actually been blooming successful. It's been a victim of its own success, so much so that we've had to build a new bus exchange, which we will be soon. So I don't think 4% is necessarily a bad statistic, and I think we're embracing public transport. And realistically, we're in a pretty fortunate position that traffic at the moment is not that bad.
I just wonder, though, compared to Auckland, and the general perception of Auckland has been they would never, ever get on a bus. Yet 4% of Aucklanders take public transport. We are no better than Auckland, despite the millions that have been thrown at the metro bus system, which is touted around the country as, you know, the paragon of excellence. Is there something wrong here?
The problem in the city as far as bus transport goes is that there is a disconnect, which was obvious when Bob Parker spoke to me this week on the program at Newstalk ZB with regards to the relationship between the City Council and Environment Canterbury. Bob is keen for there to be a separate organisation to look after the bus system in Christchurch, because the council looks after the infrastructure that goes up around the bus routes and ECAN looks after basically the buses. And it seems that that's not working. It's very piecemeal. It has been like pinning a tail on the donkey in the dark for a long time, and I think 4%, to be perfectly frank, is crap. And I don't think that just because it is such and such in another city overseas, that makes 4% here okay. I'm absolutely gobsmacked.
Is 4% crap?
I wouldn't say it was crap, Mike, but I think what's important to recognise is Council's just done its long-term council community plan. As part of that, we set a number of targets for the city about things we want to achieve. Now, myself and my colleague, Councillor Williams, actually moved that Christchurch City bring its targets higher, especially around public transport and cycling and non-motor vehicle use, to be in line with the regional land transport strategy. We have a regional strategy. So ECAN and the council and other people in this region are working together with a strategy. But our council did not want to set targets that matched what was in that strategy, and I think that's a concern.
What do you think would be a realistic target?
We should have aspirational targets, and if you look at our long-term plan, what council has done in the whole is bring all our targets down to things that are achievable with the current business-as-usual approach. I disagree with that. I think fundamentally what we need to do around public transport is have a very clear vision about what we want to achieve.
OK, but what would you consider to be a realistic target for bus patronage in Christchurch?
I think we should be aiming around 10% as a bare minimum, but I think what's important is we have to fundamentally change the way we deal with public transport in the city. I've said we should have free buses. We should have no charge if people want to use public transport. It's radical, but we need to do something to get people out of cars, because the big issue here is people are using cars at an increasing rate than they're using public transport.
OK, so in a nutshell, I take it from that, you don't believe 4% is anything to shout about?
I don't think 4% is something we should be proud of. I think, and I lost this debate at council around spending $12 million extending a tram, which has no public transport benefit in my mind, would be much better spent that money on things like very cool, modern light transit systems that connect the suburbs to the city and the outer regions, and that is where we need to go as a city. We need to develop green corridors, public transport corridors that work, rather than these bus priority lanes, which add about 2 minutes difference in travel time, and we're spending millions of dollars on it.
What do you think would be a realistic target, even though you think 4% is pretty good?
I don't think 4% is necessarily pretty good. I just don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's something that we need to cringe about. A realistic target, I totally agree with Yani there, and I see Ellie nodding her head too, that I don't think that 10% is something unrealistic either, and of course we should be aiming for it. I just don't think that we should be beating ourselves over the head with 4% currently.
You see, obviously, given you are the community board member for Fendalton Waimara, you've been on the ringside seats of the battle in Maryvale over bus priority and the perceived impact it's going to have on that neighbourhood, and the residents have been going ape about it. They believe they've been shut out and ignored by council, that you're degrading their property values by shifting all the parks into the area with residence zones and so forth.
Yep, that's
Is
true.
the impact of, putting the bus first all the time simply unbearable on residents, particularly if the vast majority of users don't use it?
We haven't found so much that the opposition has been from people thinking that their land values are going to decrease. It's from the businesses that were more concerned that the parks outside their businesses were going to be lost with the bus priority. And look, tell you what, I've got...
But the residents are also concerned, are they not, that you're shunting all of that traffic into their suburban streets as a result?
As well.
Yeah.
And Mike, you raise a really good point, and this is where I think we've got it wrong as a city. What we're trying to do is cram too many things into a confined space. We're trying to put cycleways, bus priority lanes, cars, traffic, parking, pedestrians, all in a limited space around our roads, and that is a failed strategy. I don't believe it is the right strategy. What we should be doing is saying these roads are where the buses will go. They will be high frequency, they will be green corridors where people can cycle and walk, and we don't expect to have a high level of parking, but these are the green corridors in our city that will connect the suburbs to the city centre. But, if you look at what's happening with the tram extension, we're creating gridlock in a city. You look at the impact that the tram extension will have on the new bus terminal and the current bus exchange. It is going to make those buses delayed further and further and further.
I just
and
want
less
to say
people
something
will
about
take them.
Papanui Road, okay, because this is my part of town as well, and I have seen what happens at peak hour traffic when you've got emergency vehicles trying to get down there. They can't, and even with the parking removed in bus priority lanes, it's going to be a nightmare. We've got a train station at Papanui. We've got train stations out to the north. They run right through that entire area, and we are not looking at it.
This should be utilised. I agree, totally.
I was just going to
Very much
raise the rail issue. Yeah, it is very interesting that when you look at the commuters from the outskirts of Christchurch, Rolleston, Rangiora, Kaiapoi, what's the common denominator here? A rail station.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Park and ride, those rail lines go right through down Heaton's, not Heaton's, Rossell and Strohan, through into town. And there are schools in that area as well. We're just not looking
We're
at
very
the options.
fortunate. The foundations have been laid. All we need is a wee bit of vision there. And I think Bob Parker, I think we all know that Bob Parker is very supportive of light rail, so it would be great to see some action there.
Well, it's great if he's supportive of it, but it needs to be matched with the funding and the investment. And why would you extend the tram for $12 million and not put it into a light transit system like Phoenix has, like other cities around the world have, that actually makes something modern and creative and that utilises public transport?
It's going to cost more than $12 million, though.
Yeah, OK. ECAN won't come to the party on light rail. They don't believe it's financially feasible.
No. No, they don't. And this is where the disconnect is. It's absolutely a disconnect. Can we move on to something else?
We'll move on to something else. Coming up very shortly, we're going to have a look at the LTCCP, the highs and lows. Oh, joy, I hear you say. Also the Botanic Gardens, the new visitor centre, and migrants in strife, are they waste products? That's coming up.